everyone, and welcome to I Never Knew Inc. podcast with Lifecoach Maureen. So I'm super excited today because I have my first guest episode, and my guest is someone that there's a really cool backstory. She makes me laugh. She's an amazing person. And I'm going to give you a little background on who she is and how we know one another. So it's interesting. You meet friends in school and you think, you hope they're lifelong friends, but in life, people are, I like to say, like a train ride. Some people hop off, some people go all the way to the end, some people get left at the train station. So my next guest is Laura Mann, and she is an old school friend of mine from high school. So we met when we were freshmen in high school, and we joined the drama club together because we are drama girls. And we maintained our friendship even after high school. We were BFFs. We had another friend, a male friend, who was one of our three musketeers, and there was just the three of us. Well, after I got married and pregnant and moved to Germany, Laura and I still kept in contact, and we even stayed with her in her house with her husband in Camarillo, California, on our way to moving to Monterey. And so we maintained our friendship until one day something just happened and we stopped. So I'm going to leave the story there, and I'm going to introduce you to her. So she's an Arizona native. She has two adult children who she raised as a single parent. She had a 16-year marriage, and it wasn't a healthy one. And this is what our podcast is about, is talking about our experiences to help others. And we're going to get into that. And she's currently a changed woman, very happy. She met her Prince Charming really like a year ago. Actually, she knew him, but then healed and then really manifested this beautiful relationship that she has. So long-winded introduction there. Welcome, Laura Mann. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I am so happy to have you on. As you know, you're my very first guest, and who better than Laura to be my first guest?
Exciting. I'm excited.
Yay! So when you heard about the concept of the podcast and how I explained that we're going to talk about our stories, and you reached out and said, I want to be on there, what is the first thing that popped into your mind that you think your story would help others if they're struggling during the same thing that you're going through? So what is the thing that stood out for you?
I think for individuals to feel like they're not taking a difficult journey alone. There's others that have taken difficult journeys or are on that difficult journey, and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I love that. So, in other words, we all go through crap, right? We all go through these difficult moments. And it's really cool I always think of it like kind of a medical diagnosis. Like you have all these symptoms, you don't know where to turn. And all of a sudden, someone reaches out and goes, hey, I have that same thing. And there's sort of this relief that someone understands what you're feeling. Does that sound pretty close to what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Love it. Love it. So tell me a moment in your life or the most profound sort of turning point. Maybe you didn't change right away, but it was this moment that stands out about your life and your experience. Let's start with your story. Let's start with what early on. Was it childhood? Was it when you got married? Was it self-confidence? Tell me your biggest struggle and when it started.
Gosh, I would probably say, um, I would probably say self-confidence. That has been a source of contention for me, I would say the majority of my entire life, even when I was very, very young. I never felt um I never felt like I met the mold of what everybody else was. I struggled with my weight. I um wasn't always the smartest in the group or, whatever, but I was surrounded by a lot of really incredible people my whole life. And I think that kind of manifested into my marriage. I lived with my mom up until the day I got married. Um, and the day after I was married, I moved to California. So I uprooted my entire life of everything I'd ever known. Um, Born and raised in the same town and house, and never had significant change. Um, so moved to California and lived there for about 15 years. Um, I would say the first 2 or 3 years of my marriage were pretty good. Had 2 children. They were about almost 6 years apart. But as my marriage developed, I realized that it wasn't a healthy marriage. I struggled with codependency, which I wasn't really familiar with at the time in my early 20s. And he wasn't a healthy man. He wasn't mentally healthy. He wasn't physically healthy. The longer we were married, the more tumultuous the marriage became. And so I finally had enough courage to decide to end that marriage. It was not an easy decision. I didn't have family support close to me. I didn't share a lot of my experiences in my marriage with my family. It was really emotionally abusive, at times physical. And it's just not something that it's almost shameful, which to me is very frustrating, because we should be able to share with those around us that love us the most the issues, the fears that you're going through. And I was just very ashamed of that. And so I had made a decision. It's either I end this marriage or live in a constant state of fear. And it wasn't just me, it was my children too. So I ended my marriage, which was not an easy decision to make. And unfortunately, instead of taking some time to kind of regroup and discover who I was, or what my self-worth was, or, what I could contribute to society on any level. I was a stay-at-home mom too. So I had not worked for about 10 years, 10, 12 years. So I immediately jumped into another relationship, and that relationship lasted 10 years. And again, very, very codependent on this individual who was not good for me. And ended that after 10 years. During that time, I dated, I was seeking a companion. And it was just, dating in your 40s is not a lot of fun. So, I dated, I made some bad choices during that time that weren't good for me. So I had decided I'm going to take a hiatus, because I need to figure out who I am. I need to learn to spend some time by myself and do things that I was uncomfortable with, and being comfortable with doing those uncomfortable things. So little things like going out to dinner by myself and sitting in a restaurant by myself, or going to events, community events, or even reunions or whatever, alone, and being comfortable being alone. And during this time, I'd had a few dates with a gentleman. They were good dates. We got along famously and had great conversation, but nothing ever really transpired. There was always a significant hiatus in between this time. So this individual had reached out to me about 2.5 years ago, and my first thought was, well, he must be single again, because I felt like every time he had reached out to me, he was single or I was a soft place to land. And so I said, well, okay, we'll give it a whirl. We'll go out to dinner or whatever. And it just seemed from the very beginning, it was a little different than the few times before that we had met. It just seemed more genuine, that he was more genuinely interested, wanted to have for our date have it be a great experience. And but during that time, during my hiatus, I did a lot of healing, and just kind of looked at myself a little bit. What is my self-worth? What do I want in my life? What am I not going to settle for? And I had written down in a little journal that I have things that I really wanted for myself, career-wise, for my children, and a partner. And I did that about 2 years prior to this last meeting with this gentleman. And so we went out and had a wonderful time, and conversation was very honest and very organic. And I knew at that point that I really liked him, and I had always really liked him. But I knew, with the history that we had talked about with each other, as he had not been in healthy relationships either, that I needed to let him drive the train, so to speak, and learn that who I was is genuinely who I was, and give him that time to trust that. And so I didn't reach out to him. I didn't text him first. I didn't make the calls first. I just let him take the initiative when he was ready. And it just transpired very organically for about 6 months. And then we became, I guess, what you could say, official. And it has been the greatest relationship I've ever had. We are on the same page. We've never had a disagreement. We've never had an argument. And I've never in my life experienced a partner that is so incredibly supportive. And so that was a journey in itself, because I never had anybody I can trust 100%, that had my back 100%, that supported me 100%, and was fully embraced by not just my children, but my family as well. And literally living the fairy tale story. It's just been a beautiful journey, but it wasn't an easy one to get to where I'm at today. But I just didn't want to settle for something that felt good at the time that could potentially not be good for me down the road later. And I didn't. And this is what came to surface, and it's just been wonderful.
I love that. And what I hear is the reversal of the codependency and the no more settling and the deciding. And for anyone who listened to my very first episode where you meet me, you will see how, Laura, your story echoes my experience, so closely. So since this is about letting people know when you're at that lowest moment, what you can do to persevere, what was the lowest moment in that marriage to your first husband, your children's father? What was a moment where, like for me, I almost died. He had me on the ground. Doesn't mean I left then, but I know that it was a lowest moment, and I'm certain in my mind things were starting at least to become more aware that this is not good for me. So what was your moment in that marriage at that lowest point?
I think the lowest point in my marriage was we had done multiple marriage counseling sessions, pastoral counseling, and as he got older, he became more angry, and I was fearful. I was terrified of him. And it progressed to the point where I really feared for not just my life, but the lives of my children. Um, and I really struggled with that because when he was good, he was very good. Um, and when he wasn't, he really, really wasn't. And walking on eggshells every day and living in a constant state of fear and anxiety, I finally asked myself one day, what's scarier? Being on the front page of a newspaper one day or trying to make it on your own with your children? And I decided at that point that I needed to do what was best for me and my children, and encourage and hope that he would seek um, medical attention to have peace of mind. And that's what I had told him through the majority of our years being married, that all I wanted was for him to have peace of mind. And that was a pivotal turning point for me, was deciding what was scarier, um, being with him
Yeah,
or being without him.
And I love that. I love that perspective for our listeners, because I call it, when I do my coaching, I call it the worst case scenario. I always say, when you have a fear, think of the worst case scenario. And when you put it into words, or you write down that worst case scenario, you bring that fear to light, and then it feels a little easier. And I love that you took the perspective of what is worse. And I think we've worked through these things, we'll experience them over and over and say, I can't even think about not being with this person. And what I was writing some notes when you were speaking is, what we forget is when we're in these codependent relationships or abusive relationships, there isn't just the psychological, mental, and physical abuse, but there's also this economical fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there with you. I mean, I certainly didn't think I made enough money to support my 3 children and pay all the bills. But I did what you did, where I'm like, you know what? I would rather be struggling with my children and them be happy and me be happy and figure out the financial stuff, where probably years later it kept me in there. And I love that you talk about, throughout the marriage, I just wanted him to be well. I wanted him to be well. And I think that's important. We all anyone who's overcome anything or been able to remove themselves from these situations that are not healthy, is we finally reach a point where we stop caring about them being well and we start caring about ourselves being well. And like you said, that building of that self-confidence for you was everything. And recognizing, going forward into these new relationships, I also love that the way that you and I are so similar is, I had to take that hiatus and get out of relationships too. My codependence was, I needed to have someone always by my side, whether they were good or bad. I still wanted someone. And so I love that we're starting this theme to help everyone, which is learn to be comfortable in your own skin, learn to be alone, learn to do things that are outside of your comfort zone. And once you face that fear, it's like someone who's afraid of a roller coaster, and then they get on the roller coaster and get off, and they think, oh, well, I'm still alive. I made it through, and that wasn't so bad. And actually, it was kind of fun. I think fear is like that, don't you?
I do. And part of it was, for me, I felt like I had no self-worth or purpose unless I had a partner. And to realize that I don't have to have a partner to have self-worth. And that time that I was on a hiatus, I'm not saying that was an easy journey. That was a very, very difficult journey for me. Um, it was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to face, because it was just me, and discovering who I was in that moment at that time. Um, it was very, very difficult, but the end reward was so grand, because the more I did things that were uncomfortable, the easier it became. So when I would overcome, and it was baby steps for me, like literally, I'm going to go to the movies by myself. And for some people, that's a no-brainer. For me, it was a very difficult. Or going to events by myself, going to community events by myself. Um, for some people, that's really easy. For me, it was not. I always had somebody that I depended on, financially, emotionally, or whatever. And to have to work through that process by myself was not an easy journey. And, but the end reward has been really, really great. So it's would I do it over again? Would I have all those experiences again to get to where I'm at today? So if somebody said, Laura, you had to live that life all over again to have this life that you have now, would you do it? And I probably would. Um, Not saying that I would want to, because I don't want to, but to get to where I'm at today, um, and I'm not saying that I don't continue to have struggles. I do continue to have struggles, but I have the ability to work through those struggles. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than I would hope for, but giving myself that time to learn the tools that I needed for myself that work for me to overcome those struggles has been very, very rewarding. Um, but that's part of the process of when I decided one day to message you after 20 some years, to message you and say, hey, I don't, it was scary to do that, because I wanted to reconnect, but I didn't know if I was able to reconnect. And little did I know, when I reconnected with you, that you were doing this. So that was a journey in itself as well, because with reconnecting with you and you being a life coach, little did I know that I would be life coached through this process. And I think we did that through our conversations of reconnection for a good year. And you warranted me some tools that I very much needed to take that hiatus as well. Um, and so it's just really been a beautiful journey since we've reconnected. I've utilized the tools that you've given me and still continue to do that. Like I said, I'm a work in progress. I'm not perfect, and nothing is perfect, but I'm for the first time in my life, very content with where I'm at. I've got some struggles going on today right now, and so it's just a matter of working through that process and utilizing the tools. And I may be able to get through this moment today right now, or it may take me till tomorrow, it may take me till Friday, but I don't marinate in the what ifs anymore. And so, it's still, life is not an easy journey, and it's certainly not been an easy journey, but I've been incredibly blessed to have the tools to be able to get through that. And then, of course, the support of
Absolutely.
my partner. Yeah.
I love that, there's so many things in there I want to address. So the sort of the backstory, guys, about us reuniting is we had a mutual friend who had said something to Laura about me not wanting to be her friend anymore, and said something to me about Laura not wanting to be my friend anymore, that I was angry at her. And it's funny that the maturity of life, now we talk on the phone and we'll say, that would never happen today because I would pick that phone up and I will call you out. So the beauty of maturing and the beauty of wisdom and growing older. So look at where her and I were in our youth, in our own insecurities. We didn't have the bravery to just call each other up and say, hey, what the heck? Are you mad at me? So we projected our own insecurities onto one another, and we lost our beautiful, beautiful friendship for 25 years. And when we reunited, it was as if time never went by. And we were those 15-year-old girls again. And she's my sister now. I can go to her with so much honesty and she can come to me with honesty. And we're just these open books. And as sad as I am that we lost those years, Laura always says to me, but it had to happen because we needed to go through those things on our own. Just like I talked about in my relationship where I broke up with my husband and we had to heal ourselves to come back and be the best people. And Laura echoes this in the relationship she has now when she was dating her lovely man that she has today. What's interesting, Laura, is I said the same thing. I didn't know how to be alone. And what I realized was my identity, I didn't have an identity. All my identity was mom and wife and friend and friend to others, or being there as a daughter. So there was no individual identity that I had as just being me, Maureen. And when I started doing what you did, going out there, I remember the first time sitting at a coffee shop, I thought everyone was looking at me like, ha ha, she's single. She must be really unlovable. It's silly how our minds can create these false negative beliefs. But that's what I thought because I'd never done it alone. And my upbringing, programming, experience had been, you need to have a partner in life to count for something. And so I agree with you. The first steps when I tell my clients, you got to build your self-image, your self-esteem, and your self-confidence first. That's funny, when you're a codependent, you were either taught to believe or you just created this in your own mind that that's selfish. I'm not supposed to focus on me. I'm not supposed to do everything for me. That's being self-absorbed. That's being full of yourself. That's being vain. I know in my childhood, that's what I was raised to believe was you need to do things for others. Look at some of the sayings that we say. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Or, suck it up, buttercup. It's like we were never taught to take care of us first, believe in ourselves first, and speak our minds and our truth and believe that we have a right to the best life and the things that we want and deserve. And so I love and I appreciate, excuse me, I appreciate your the way that she says it's life coaching. And, for me, it was just, it's what's come natural to me. She said something to me, Laura, you said something to me that sticks with me to this day. When we reunited and I said, hey, I am life coaching. And you said to me, well, yeah, you've been doing it since we were kids. And it really hit me because I didn't see myself then as a helper. I didn't know my purpose. And it was super cool for you to kind of make me aware that this is who I am and who I've always been. And so I thank you for those words. And I know you didn't even know they were that profound, but it helped me to say, because I tend to, and I don't know if you do this, I tend to say the first half of my life was a shit show and I was a mess. And the second half of my life is grand. And that's really not true. It's more a blending of, I had these qualities in the first half of my life. I just didn't utilize them. I didn't have that awareness. I didn't have the strength that I have now. And the second half is learning how to sift and sort. Like you said, we are a work in progress. Well, heck yeah, because the only time your work is done is when you're done here on earth. So, yeah, we're going to be a work in progress always, because you're going to keep asking for growth. And how do we get that growth? We get more experiences, right? So there's no getting it done. I follow Abraham Hicks, and she always says there's no getting it right and there's no getting it done. And that is not a negative thing. It's like, just have mercy with yourself and just say, yeah, every day I'm getting better than I was yesterday. And I'm doing great. I'm learning new things, and I'm asking for things that I want, things that I deserve. So I want to ask you one more question, or a couple of more questions. So one of the questions on the questionnaire for my guests that I always ask, because it is you never knew, or I never knew, I want to ask you, what is the one thing you never knew that you know now and you want others to grasp now sooner than later?
I think it has been, if it and this was literally an epiphany for me, and it's such an easy thing, so I don't know why this wasn't, why I didn't have an aha moment way before this, but I think it was when we had reconnected, and there was some conversation that you and I had about, I can't believe, like, 20 some years have passed, and what was communicated to us that was kind of the demise of our friendship. You know, why that happened, and why would he do that, and why would he say those things, and and I've always said, it was, I try to look at a positive spin on that, because during this time that we were no longer communicating, or were friends, so to speak, we were still friends on the side with this other individual. And I think there was some frustration there on your part, but I have always said, I don't know that we would have been good for each other during that time, because we were in such a bad place, and I think we would have fed off of that. I'm not saying that we wouldn't have been there to support each other, but I think it would have been just a very toxic time for us. And I think now that we went through that, and we healed through that, and we moved forward from that, I think our friendship has grown and thrived. And so we were to reconnect at the time that we did. And like you said, it was like no time had passed at all. Our kids got older, and we're able to share those experiences now in a much healthier place and be that. But during the time that we reconnected, you had said something that was a real epiphany for me. And that was, if it doesn't bring you joy, pretty much why bother? Of course, you used much better verbiage, but, and so I've always kind of said that to myself. Like, if this relationship, or this job, or this, whatever it is, this moment isn't bringing me joy, why am I going to participate or invite that in my life? And so I just quit doing that. And I'm 52, and I have a great tribe of people around me, whether it's family, friends, or whatever. And so I'm not looking to reestablish or establish more friendships. If it happens, great. But friendships and relationships are a lot of work. And so I'm really content and happy with where I am. And, I've terminated some friendships and relationships because it's just tumultuous and it doesn't bring me joy. So I think that's been that was a huge epiphany for me, because you kind of feel like when you're in a relationship, whether you've known somebody for a year or you've known somebody for 20 years, if it's not healthy, why are you doing it? It's exhausting. It's emotionally draining. It's exhausting, and then it consumes your thoughts, and you can't fix it. You can't fix it because during that time, this wasn't something, whatever it is, whoever they are, whatever it is they're going through, you can talk till you're blue in the face, but until they make that decision that I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm not going to talk about this anymore, or I'm going to move forward from this and heal, it's just exhausting. And I just don't want to spend my time. And it's not because I'm not empathetic. I'm very empathetic to situations, as I've been through them myself. But I don't want to consume my time with it if you're not willing to recognize that and move forward from it. It's kind of like it's almost like a virus, you know? It's not wanting to get better and heal. And so and it's not an easy journey. It's not been an easy journey, and I'm still on the journey. And I have days that are really, really hard. But I think that's kind of, for me, that was my turning point in my life. If it doesn't bring you joy, don't invite it.
I love what you just said, all of it, but especially that you said it's like a virus that you keep inviting in, which is so true because basically our comfort zone is that. And you can be in a comfort zone of all the things that you love, but if you stay in a comfort zone of the things that are not healthy for you, you're going to keep asking for this virus over and over. And I love that you put that verbiage on this. I think that's amazing. Let me ask you, how much impact does self confidence have in making these turning points and these changes in someone's life? Like, can you not have self esteem and no self confidence and still make these changes? Or are you adamant that you have to have these things in order to move forward?
I don't know if it's self-confidence, because I struggle with that to this day. However, I think it's saying to yourself, is this what I want to continue to do? Is this how I want to continue to feel? Rather it's a relationship, a friendship, a job, or whatever the case may be. And it's just taking a baby step. I don't want to do this. This doesn't bring me joy. And it's facing a fear, and that's really, really hard to do. But it's facing a fear and saying, would I would I rather would I rather stay in this moment of misery, or would I rather have a small moment of fear and make the next step? And it's facing that fear and making that next step. And I think if you have a good support system, or believe in yourself enough to say, I can get through this. I've been through A, B, and C. This this is going to be much easier than what I went through before. But I do think confidence comes with making those steps. And the more you make those steps to get better or heal, the more confident you become. Um, but again, that's something that I continue to struggle with. Do I struggle with it like I did, 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, or even just a few years ago? No, I don't. But when I started eliminating those things that would make me question my worth, then I started realizing what my worth was. And so, it's a work in progress. It's not something that happens overnight. It just doesn't. You have to work through the journey that you're choosing to take. And hopefully you see that. And like I said, it's taken me, I mean, I was 45 before I realized I don't deserve to live like this. I don't deserve to live like this. And so it's been a very, it's not, it's a process that took me quite a while to get to. And I am much more confident now in my worth, my ability, and what I have to offer than I was even, 6 or 7 years ago. And it's built my confidence. So I think I think you kind of have to, a little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, what I heard you say was you don't have to have confidence to make these changes, but when you make these changes, you end up with confidence. So it's kind of cool. It's like this cause and effect thing. Like you don't have to feel completely confident to just start, to just take the steps. And what I love is when a lot of us have this perfectionism mentality. I should be this certain way at this certain point at this certain time in my life. And I think that's where we go wrong is the comparing ourselves to others when we need to like walk our own path and take it at our own pace. It might take me 5 years to do something and take you 5 months to do something. I think we have to stop looking externally at what everyone else is doing and stay focused on what's working for us. And so I just love that you don't have to have confidence to make the changes, but the changes will bring you the confidence you're looking for. So if you take anything away, listeners, what she said was she said to herself, is this what I want to continue doing? Does this make me happy? So, Laura, and I'm going to ask every podcast guest going forward these next two questions while we wrap up. We're perfect timing here. What is a mantra or a self encouraging saying or thought or talk that you say to yourself when you find yourself in another challenging moment? What is the kind of the go-to? I think we all have sort of a repetitive thing, and I tell clients have a theme song and have a mantra. And of course, mine is everything is always working out for me. So no matter what struggle or obstacles in front of me, I just keep telling myself, you know what? Everything's always working out for you, Maureen. Stop stressing about it. Just figure out what you want to do. You can either stop thinking about it and go chill out, or you can sit down and find a solution. So what's your go-to encouraging talk or mantra that you do?
I think there's a couple. One, I will survive, and two, um, change is good. I've never liked change ever. I've not had to experience a lot of change in my life, but every time I've made a change, as scary as it is, because it's very, very scary for me, it's always been very, very good. And so I always tell myself, okay, it's a change and you're terrified, but I've never had a change that did not benefit me somehow in the end. Um, Not saying that change during that process wasn't hard or difficult or scary. It was, but it somehow benefited me and I've grown immensely because of it. And I will survive because I have survived every obstacle that's been thrown at me. Um, and I've come through it, and I've come through it stronger and learning something more about myself. Um, so I would say probably those two things, that I have to remind myself pretty much on a daily. And and like I said, some days are easier than others. So I mean, I'm going through that now. I'm going through some change now, and again, some days are easier than others. But knowing that I'll survive it, I think is gives me peace of mind.
I love those. I love those. And if I could take the liberty of saying what you're not saying also is when you say I will survive, it's your way of affirming I've done hard things. I will continue to do hard things. And I love affirmations. It's a form of just saying, stop looking at what you didn't do or what you don't have and start looking at, look what I've done, look what I've overcome, look at how good I am at this. And when you say change is good, it's a reminder to you that getting out of your comfort zone feels different, feels scary, but every time I've gotten out of my comfort zone, I've faced a fear and now it's much easier. And you said something earlier, which I love. It is my notes here. It is that it gets easier as you try these things. And what people don't understand is this is why we continue to ask for the same experience. I always say, if the same experience is repeating itself in your life, you're not getting the lesson. So you're going to keep learning until you get the lesson. So you're either learning or you're teaching. And these changes, these awarenesses, these are a part of a practice. So you've said so eloquently in this episode, I'm still a work in progress. And what you're saying is, I'm going to keep doing things and then I'm going to keep getting better at them. And what I've learned is it's a practiced behavior. It's a practiced thought process. It's a practiced, it's just like riding a bike or learning to tie your shoe. You didn't do it once. And then we're like, oh yeah, I'm a professional shoe tire. So I think people are so hard on themselves. And when I talk about anything life coaching or mindful related, I always say it's a mindfulness is a muscle. It's something you build. It's something you work out and you practice and you get better at it as you go along. So I absolutely love everything you're saying. And so as I end the podcast, I'm gonna ask this question to everybody. So what is your go-to self-indulgent thing that you do? And I really, because this is real talk, real life, I don't care if you say it's a glass of wine at the end of the day. I don't even care if you say it's a glass of wine in the middle of the day, to be honest with you. But what's your go-to self-taught or self-indulgent thing that brings you that joy? If you're feeling, oh, I'm stressed out, I'm going to go do this thing. What would you say it is?
Gosh, that's a great question. My go-to self-indulgent thing, to be very honest, I would say, oh, that's a great question. My go-to self-indulgent. Well, I'm all about potato chips and beer, but
yes,
I love potato chips. Oh my gosh, and French fries. But I also love a good bath. I love a good bath.
I love
Or
it.
making a phone call to, it's either one of two people, my sister or a dear friend, and just talking in the moment. I mean, I don't know, it's a great phone call with a bag of chips and a beer in the bathtub. There you go. So I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
I am here for the all of the above.
Seriously.
Oh my God. What is your favorite potato chip?
I just love a good plain or okay, no, that's not true. My favorite potato chips are salt and vinegar. Salt and
Ooh,
vinegar. I would
that
rather have a bag of potato chips versus a brownie.
I love it. Okay, and what's your favorite smell for your bath? Is it like lavender or is it eucalyptus? What's your favorite bath smell? If we got you a bath bomb, what smell would be your choice?
Oh, well, I'm all about Dr. Teal's, there's two. There's the lavender and the eucalyptus. So it depends on my mood. There's also an energy one that smells like orange. I mean, I'm all about Dr. Teal's. I have bags of them under my sink. So yeah.
I actually had a client who is all about baths, and she literally tells me like she'll take a bath in the middle of the day, which I think is the coolest thing ever. I love hearing people doing what feels right for them. I don't care what it is. And I think that's just super cool. Potato chips, a beer, a bath, and a good phone call. Oh my gosh. You know me, and mine is creating something. And every month it's something different, whether it's refurbishing furniture or painting flow paintings or making mini houses. For me, without a creative outlet, it's just like I'm pent up. So I love doing something artistic, creative with my hands and sort of vegging. And I do not like talking on the phone. So, no offense, I love talking to you, Laura, but I don't like talking to anybody else. No, I'm kidding. But I do
get that. And I will tell you that I also love to color. And I recently got a gift from my sister. And, there's like letter writing where people do fancy lettering. It's not so much calligraphy, but the fancy writing thing right now is a really popular thing. And I received this really awesome gift from my sister where it's a notebook, and it teaches you how to do writing, but everything that you practice is positive affirmations. So you learn the letters, and then when you write the quote or the positive affirmation, you're writing it so much that you actually start believing it. And so I recently got that. And it's a 30-day notebook. So I've been doing that every day, and it's wonderful.
Oh my gosh, that's like a life coach's like dream thing that I could suggest to people, because you're doing something where you're hyper focused and distracted. You're doing something creative and artistic that is an outlet. And then there's also affirmations. That's like a perfect wrapped up package with a bow for suggesting this to any of my life coaching clients. And I love this. So you have to send me a picture of it. I'm so excited to see that. What a great idea. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And that brings us to the end of my very first guest podcast, episode 2 with Laura Mann, my good friend. And I hope everyone takes something away from this, and make sure that you like and subscribe to our podcast. Tell all of your friends. We are on iHeart and Spotify. Let's blow this thing out of the water, guys. Let's spread positivity out there in the social media world, and let's help people who want to understand that they can get through the toughest moments, and everybody has been there, and we're going to help them learn how to love themselves and really have the best life that they deserve. If you're looking for life coaching, you may reach out to me at lifecoachmaureen.com. It is also where you may email ideas for the show and guests that you think would be great, or if you are a wonderful guest that has a story, a heartbreak, tragedy, whatever it is, reach out and let's get this thing going and expand this, and let's share. I think the most important thing is the sharing, and how much gratitude I have for people and their vulnerability stories. Thank you, my friend Laura. And I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful day. Come see us, share this, and let's do this. Let's do this, guys. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You're such a joy in not just my life, but for everyone else that gets to witness just a little snippet of why I adore you. So have an awesome day, guys. And we'll see you on our next episode.
Bye.